Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. This video will be talking about a general review of my book titled ABC of Adult Education. This book in particular has received an extensive review from professors and of course community leaders and of course education practitioners in general, forwarded by the former director, FCT Agency for Mass Education. This video is a short overview of what are the content in this book. Further videos in series will contain a full explanation of what these chapters contain. To get started, the chapter 1 of the particular book talks about the things you need to understand about adult education. What is adult education itself as in Nigeria? The history and the background of adult education in Nigeria. Who are the target audience for this my book, the ABC of Adult Education for practitioners? Who are the audience? We're talking about the community leaders, the social workers, the educationists in general, the adult education practitioners, the church owners, the religious leaders in general, and what have you. These are the kind of people we are talking about when we're talking about adult education. But these are the people who fall within the practitioners line of adult education in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. So after the chapter 1, we talk about the chapter 2, which is these basic principles of adult education. What are the principles that guide adult education in Nigeria and Africa and of course in the world? What is the thematic interpretations of these? What are the levels of adult education in Nigeria? What are the characteristics? What are the classes that you want to group them? Principles that guide adult education in general, and of course the 5 main principles of adult education in Nigeria. What is the difference between adult and non-formal education? I feel we'll be talking about the how to start and run our adult education in Nigeria. Wherever you are, you can start and run an adult education and make huge sum of money from it. How do you get started? How do you build your relationship with government? How do you build your relationship with community? How do you have your own audience? How do you get your adult learners? How do you maintain good relationship with your host if it's a government facility? How do you get learners and retain them? And chapter 4 talks about the management of adult education program in Nigeria. Wherever you are, you can start. And of course, you can run. How do you manage them? It's not about starting something, it's the ability to manage whatever you have started that makes you an educationist, that makes you a business person. How do you generate materials for learners? How do you generate materials for your teachers? How do you design your learning module, your teaching module? That's one of the things chapter 4 we'll be talking about. And of course, go to chapter 5. Chapter 5 talking about learning delivery and best practices. What are the best practices you need to put in place when you're delivering your teaching? How do you teach your reading? How do you teach writing? How do you teach spelling? How do you teach your adults? What are the teaching strategies you need to put in place for adult learners to learn fast and to learn the best? What are the expected usage of learning achievement? What are the usage of learning achievement? These are the things that this particular book will be talking about in chapter 5. Chapter 6 is talking about effective classroom teaching. How do you set up an effective classroom teaching? A process whereby the classroom teaching will be so efficient and effective with your presence or not being there as a facilitator. God give us the grace. We are one of the best adult education practitioners, adult education runners in Nigeria. We run adult education. We are spread all over the country. Specifically, we have our centers here in Abuja. And of course, what are the approaches that you can learn from us? What are the approaches you can achieve from adult education? Forget about what the theory talks about in the university. What are the practical things you need to put in place? How do you run it effectively? The practicality of it is a bit different from the theoretical part of it. You need to understand the effective classroom teaching. How do you coordinate them? Because adult differs from the children. You can knock a child. Why did you come late? You can't do that to an adult. That is just coming from his grandfather burial. You want to tell him or her why she didn't come to class yesterday. You can't do that. You can't motivate an adult by saying, okay, if you score this, if you get 10 over 10, I'm going to give you biscuit. It's not motivated. Adults are motivated from the inside. That's what the areas of chapter 6 we're talking about. Getting to know, so that you get to know your students. How do you get to around them? How do you deliver your training? These are the things that chapter 6 we're talking about. And of course, chapter 7 is about the evaluation and assessment. How do you evaluate your students? How do you evaluate your teaching? How do you set learners' assessments done at the middle of the term, at the end of the term, at the end of the month? How do you do their testing? These are what we call about the evaluation and assessment. How do you evaluate your assessors? How do you evaluate your teachers, rather? So that's one of the things that chapter 7 will be talking about. And of course, chapter 8 is the literacy part of it. That's called literacy. That is the breakdown of the reading, the writing, the spelling, the pronunciation, the grammar, the speaking of English, and a host of others. They are the key areas, the key summary of what you need to understand about this part. And of course, chapter 9 give us the full details of the curriculum, what you're talking about, from the basic literacy class to post-literacy class to continuing education, to remedial education, to skill acquisition classes, to computer literacy classes, whatever classes you're talking about. Then talks about it in full details. The curriculum, the approved curriculum by the Federal Ministry of Education and National Commission for Agency for Mass Education. You understand this curriculum. The last chapter, which is the appendices. The appendices talks about a sample of several elements you can use, you can adopt and adapt for your own activity, your own center, which are the student intake form, the assumption test, the entry IQ test, the testing general, the lesson planning form, the selecting approach to teaching, levels of learners assessment, tutors assessment form, facilitators evaluation form, writing checklist, spelling practice sheets, and a host of others. That's some of the samples that you can adopt and change some of the things that you can adapt. Copy of this book, please click on the link below and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. My name is Omoniyi Abiri, and see you next time.